Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Unemployable Property Podcast. We've got Kevin Dudney and Carson with us today. For those of you guys that don't know who Kevin is, and this is your first time watching, he is the founder of the Future Housing Task Force. He's an affordable housing expert. They've done over 300 rooming houses, and he himself and his team over the last 45 years have sold over 20,000 lots of land. So this guy comes with a lot of wisdom. He just doesn't have gray hair for the shit of it. He literally comes with a lot of wisdom. Kevin, thank you for joining us again.
Great to be here. Yes. Thank you.
And Carson, for those of you guys don't know who Carson is one of the co-founders of Salt Developments with Shannon, who is here on the podcast with us as well. He's not here today as he's gallivanting around Thailand. And he is a partner of ours here at Unemployable Property, doing a lot of land subdivisions across Southeast Queensland, specifically between Gold Coast and Brisbane, over $100 million worth of works. And 4 years ago, this guy, 4.5 years ago now, I've been saying 4 years now for a little while. It's probably close to 5 years ago now. This guy was cleaning carpets. So yeah, humbled to be here, guys. These catch-ups we're doing regularly now, and it's just talking about what's happening in the real estate market. What are we doing in our own investment journey in real estate, giving you guys an update on the projects that we're doing, just so you guys get to know us a little bit better, a little bit more intimately on our own personal projects. I am in the thick of it at the moment. It's basically, I feel like the guy from the block, tools down. That's me at the moment, I've been doing a luxury property here on the main river in the Gold Coast Broad Beach waters. And a good friend of mine's building it for me. And I said, you know what? It's getting close to Christmas. I know you're going to need some help. And I offered to put up my hand and said, you know what? I'll go to site, over the last 3-4 weeks, and I'll manage kind of the finishing trades. And let me tell you, that's been an experience. It's like, honestly, it's like herding cats. Great cats, mind you, like the trades are amazing, but there's a lot of them, right? So like at any point in time over the last couple of weeks, I've had, 12, 14 people on site, plumbers, electricians, painters, silicon, landscapers, pool guys, you name it, they're all there. And we're finally at the finishing line. And we've got removalists booked on Friday, silicon guys there today. We've got cleaners in there, and it's been quite the experience. I've vacuumed, I have scraped, I have cleaned, I have labored. Honestly, on the way here, I was at the house this morning, and my shirt was sweaty, and I'm like, man, I hope my under boob sweat dries by the time we start recording, because and as you can see, it's not too bad for those of you guys watching. But this is the stuff that people don't see, right?
Fortunately.
Yeah. In behind the scenes,
Yeah.
what it's really like. Sometimes you got to get your hands dirty, because my wife told me, she's like, about 3 months ago, she's like, whatever you do, I want to be in there for Christmas. So just make it happen. And I was like, shit, I actually got to make this happen. And we make it happen, right? So that's what I've been up to. In amongst that as well, we've got a DA about 3.5-4 weeks ago for our next development, which is a luxury development in Burleigh Heads, right near the headland there. We've got 5 luxury villas, 4 levels, rooftop, 4-bedroom, master bedroom retreat, all ensuited. It's a beautiful project. We've been back and forth with the builder. We've been back and forth with the funders. We're engaging the QS now, so that way we can sit down for the final valuation and get the funding sorted. We're going to start construction in February, so we're going to demolish in February and get that one started. So we're in deep now with the design phase. So we've been working with the designer, changing a few things, some of the external facades and some of the internal selections, which is quite it's quite fun, when you're sitting there going, no, not this stone, that stone, this timber floor, what do you think about this color, no, that lighting, so we can get this schedule of finishes down pat. Because what happens is the process for those of you guys that don't know, you get a DA, woohoo, right? Like we got a DA, let's get this thing revaled. But what you first got to do now is you got to get the schedule of finishes and you got to get the design right. So that way you could sit down and you can sit down with a builder. So that way you can actually see what you're building. Then you give it to a QS, which is a quantity surveyor. So they could go, okay, you know what? Line item by line item, line item by line item in regards to what everything is going to cost. Because just because you think, oh, I got my mate that's going to be doing this and he's going to be giving me a 20% discount, and I've got another mate that's going to do this, and I'm going to import this, and I'm going to do this. The QS doesn't give a shit about that. The QS is going to go, what is this thing going to cost to build locally? And then you got to take that to the valuer with a schedule of finishes. So that way the valuer can look back at the feasibility, work backwards and go, you know what, the GR, which is a gross realized value, which is basically the end net sales value of the project, and then work backwards. So that way he approves a value, end value. Then you give that to the actual funder. And then based on that, that's where you work your LVRs, which is your loan to value ratios, to see, you know, can you get any upfront money back that you've tipped in, you know, with the uplift of the land, getting the DA and obviously improving it or not. And, you know, do you have to tip in more money, and how are you going to fund the rest of it? So that's,
Expecting a bit of an uplift there.
yes,
Yeah.
definitely expecting an uplift, which is great. We knew that from the beginning. Obviously we've improved the land. We've really exhausted what we could do with it. We pushed the boundaries. And we got the DA, I think was about 4 months. We could have probably got it done in about 3.5, but there was one RFI that we had to go back with a little bit. That took a couple of weeks just with the consultants. But overall, for all you Victorians and New South Wales listeners that are used to, you know, 12, 24-month development application approvals, here in Southeast Queensland, they're very pro-development, and you can get some of these pushed through within, you know, 3, 4, 5 months. And time is money, and, you know, getting in and out of a project as quick as possible obviously reduces the amount of risk as well, being in the market. So in amongst all that, and obviously Unemployable podcast and the businesses, that's what I've been doing. And it's been kind of a whirlwind over the last month between it all. But as we do, we get shit done. And that's what I've been up to. And then I come here this morning where we're recording the Friday podcast. And then I got Carson sitting on the couch telling me, yeah, we just got this deal. And, you know, that land that we bought 2 years ago, we've got a contract on that. We're going to make X. And then you see this one's got a GR of this. And I'm just going like, oh, I need to change tactic a little bit, I think, because you're making me feel very bad, and you're making me sound very stupid. And my self-esteem is being shot down right now because you're absolutely killing it. And here I am, you know, vacuuming and defecting and, you know,
Maybe take a minute off to watch, read Desiderata. You know, there'll always be someone who's making more, there'll be someone making less, and stuff like that.
And he's here with his, you know, Havaianas, takes his Havaianas off, crosses his leg, and he's talking to me. And I'm just like, oh, man. And then my next question is, hey, you know, as busy as you are, if there's any good deals that come up that you don't want, you know, please throw them over here, you know?
Oh, mate.
I'm always planting the seed with Carson.
That's good. No, we'll definitely be some projects we'll do for sure. But back to your house, how's that relationship been with the builder because of the way that you've done it? Like, I know I've had other mates that have done that with builders and it went south, and it was like the builder was like, oh, I'm not doing this again. And is it something you'd recommend someone to do? Or
No, definitely not. Like, most people, when they're investing in real estate, are buying today and holding for 10 years, hoping that the value of your property is going to go up. Other people are buying negatively geared properties for tax purposes. Let me tell you, what Kevin Dooney and the High Yield Property Club are teaching people is how to invest in rooming houses. They're building hundreds of rooming houses every year. What's a rooming house? It's a house with 5 separate rooms, with their own kitchenettes, with their own bathrooms, and 5 different people live in these houses. If you want to know more about this type of real estate and this type of investment structure, click on the link above the comments or go to www.unemployable.com.au/high yield property club, and Kevin and one of his team will get in contact with you guys to discuss this type of investment. I've got a very good relationship with my builder. I've known him probably now for about 16 years. And I wanted him to build it originally, but he was busy with other very, very large builds over the last couple of years. And then it came to fruition and we did a deal, right? But most builders is like, how it's going to work is, give me your schedule of finishes, this is what you're getting. I don't want you on site. You know what I mean? Because it's painful, right?
Yeah.
But because I know building and I've got contacts in trades and bits and pieces, we work together. So he's allowed me to use some of my trades. Obviously, we've used some of his trades, and I know that he's doing me a bit of a favor at the same time. And that's why at the end, I'm like, you know what? Coming up to Christmas, it's absolutely crazy. You've got other projects on at the same time. The project took a little bit longer, as all projects do, more than what you expect, but there was certain reasons why that happened, with some of the materials that we used and, the stones that we imported from overseas and stuff that took a little bit longer. But when you walk into the home now, everyone's just like, this is out of control.
No faults with your
Right?
tiles.
Very wow. Yeah. Everything was amazing. Right. So so there's a bit of give and taking, and I understand that, right? So it's setting those expectations up front. But if I was a new developer and I didn't know the industry and I wasn't around the industry, it's something that like you definitely don't want to do. I would just get a schedule of finishes, right? Get a design, get a schedule of finishes, get it solid exactly what you want, get it priced, get a build contract, set those expectations, and then set and forget. But for someone like me, I actually enjoy the process. I enjoy being on site. I enjoy chatting with the boys, the camaraderie, the laughing. I'm originally, my dad is a tiler. So I tiled for many years and I've always been around the construction industry. So I enjoy that. Like there's something about just being on site, on the tools, defecting, and I'm very detail oriented. So right now, at the end is the nitty gritty. It is the last 5% that everybody sees, right? The silicon joint, the trims, the powder coating, the hinges to match the sanitary wear, all these little extra things that bring it that wow factor. And that's the difference between getting a top number and getting an okay number.
How much of that is because you had a interior designer help you out, right? How much of that is what they come up with, and how much of it is what you and Jen?
Yeah, so the interior designer, we sat down with them early on in the piece, and she's been great, right? So she was, her name's Amber from Evoke Interiors. Highly recommend Amber. She was great to work with. But again, it's setting those expectations up front. So certain things get specified and they look amazing, but by the time you're starting to build and you're going through, and then all of a sudden you're like, so that wallpaper that got specified that we need is $1,500 a roll, and you need 3 rolls, and all it is for 2 little bar niches, and you're going, all right, well, I don't want to spend $5,000 right on 2 little bar niches, so let's go back to the drawing board and find new wallpaper. All right, well, the handles that were specified are $500 each, and maybe those aren't, the exact ones that we need to go with. So there's been a lot of chopping and changing along the way. Now, my missus, she's loves design. She's amazing. She's a creative, right? She puts a lot of different things together. So it was her and Amber that really worked on the palette originally to get it to where it is today. But there's been a lot of changes, and like the carpet that was specified isn't the carpet we put in. We upgraded the carpet. The timber that was specified wasn't the one we put in, but it gave us the guide of the color that we needed. So we got a custom timber made, a custom color made for that house. We had coffered ceilings in some areas that we took away and put them in other areas, and a lot of different things. But again, we know what we're doing. But for a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, I would definitely recommend just working on the design up front a little bit longer to get that right. So that way you're not dealing with headaches along the way, because not all builders, some builders will sit there and just smash you with variations and, and there's different things that can happen like that. So,
and your mindset's always been, we'll live in it for a while and then we'll sell it. You're not.
Yeah. It's not a forever. Yeah. It's not a forever home. We're never attached to those types of things.
I think his mindset is his wife's moving in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, that is the mindset. We will be sleeping there Sunday night.
Yeah.
That's the mindset.
That's the mindset.
We're recording this on Tuesday, and Sunday night, I promise you I'll put out a video of me sleeping there, whether it's on a mattress, whether it's on timber floors, we are sleeping there.
He will be in for Christmas. Okay, got that?
It does not matter.
It does not.
Leaks or no leaks. So that's what I've been up to, which has been it's been a lot, right? It's been a lot, but because I work with amazing people, guys like Carson, and I'm like, hey, you're gonna have to bear with me for the next couple of weeks. I'm not going to be, the A player that I usually am. I'll probably drop a couple balls here, but just so rather than dropping them, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm dropping them. I'm just letting you know they're going to be dropped first. So, but we're still showing up, doing what we do. So now, Carson, I want to know a little bit more. Like off camera, we were talking about, and I know you can't talk about all these deals because obviously we're special people and you can tell us everything, but we can't tell obviously the audience every single thing because some of these are not unconditional, some of them are not signed or verbal, all these types of things.
Yeah.
The ones that you can talk about, what have you been up to? Because I've seen you, since we started this podcast, Unemployable Property, which is probably 7-8 months ago now, you are an animal at acquisitions. You are the most consistent, disciplined person that is just every week you're just offers. And you said a couple things saying that you haven't bought anything in 9 months, right? But you've been putting offers every week, and now all of a sudden there's all this happening. So tell me what you have been up to, and tell the audience some of this exciting stuff that you're working on.
Yeah, on that, I remember it was mid-COVID 2020 when I was like, had a little bit of success and had a little bit in the pipeline. I was like, oh, I'm doing this full time. I'm going to absolutely smash it. But we've always had a really tight criteria that we haven't wavered from, as in the margins that we shoot for. Like a lot of the development industry will take 20% used to be the benchmark, and even I'm talking to developers that are even doing high rise on 17% margin, which I think is scary. If you had a little bit of escalation in the market, come back a bit, and you're doing it for fun all of a sudden, if not worse. So we've always been pretty adamant on the higher margins. And when I was going full time, I said to them, I'm going to smash this now. I've got all this time, and didn't buy anything for like 12 months. So it's very frustrating when you're making offers over and over. And a lot of our coaching clients that are just trying to get into their first deal, I said, look, borrow our belief until you get your own project, because it really is, there is no real secret sauce. It literally is just making offers over and over, and initially for me, it might sound very basic to people that have been around for a while, just having a due diligence clause. It gave me that safety net to just throw offers out there and know that the deposit's refundable and that I can work through things instead of trying to make the deal like 100% perfect. Yes, you got to do the due diligence. You don't want to be that guy that just puts stuff under contract and it pulls out. You'll get that reputation with the agents, but you've got to it's just a numbers game. And we did a session with the coaching clients last night where literally 50% of the sites that we've got, we've picked up 6 months, 12 months after we made the first offer. Sometimes some of them, 2/3 of what they were asking initially. So it's just being consistent. It's not rocket science. Like I say, it's grade 5 maths and you're allowed to use a calculator. It's just once you understand the basics of it, it's just then just throwing out offers. And then, I really love the creative strategies of how to put a deal together. Like we just got the phone call yesterday on an acreage site on the Gold Coast. It's going to be a 14-lot acreage subdivision. There was 14 offers, 3 of them were a higher price than us, and we ended up with the deal because we took the time. The agent liked the fact that we took our ecologists to the site. Well, one of 2 of the 14 offers actually took the time to actually do that, so they had confidence that our offer, we'd done enough due diligence where it wasn't going to be something we're going to beat them up during DD and pull backwards. So the agent was quite keen for us to get it because they knew we'd done some bits and pieces in the area, and we made that pretty clear. I'd never met the agent before, but my first job was like, okay, I want to tell this guy, try and build up our credibility. Say, look, this is all the stuff that we've done. I'd start sending him information, snippets from my ecologists. I'm not one of those guys that geek out on all the planning and ecology stuff. I still lean on the consultants really heavily, but just little things like the offsets, for example, to clear the vegetation. It's 830 grand for us to clear like 2/3 of the site. This used to be a grass paddock. Just let it get overgrown, and now it's over 3 meters, all of a sudden it's habitat now that you know, if they just kept mowing the grass, we would have been fine. We wouldn't have to pay any of that. And so she's like,
What
"Oh,
do you mean? So when it grows 3 meters, all of a sudden it's habitat. So what is that habitat? Because if it grows over 3 meters, there's different types of animals and species and stuff that
Bengal
obviously,
tigers,
yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Bengal tigers, 3 meters.
I guess they've got to draw the line somewhere, and someone in their infinite wisdom decided 3 meters or 3 or 4 meters. I forget the exact number, and then I think it's like roughly the size of your wrist size tree. Then all of a sudden it's, you know, it's as if it had been there from the beginning. So, and we'll make the case that, hey, you know, this is just regrowth, but they're like, well, now it's, you know, it's to a certain height. They don't really care. So now we have to go through the process of, you know, looking to get that vegetation removed, because it's like it's one of the last zoned sites on the Gold Coast that can be subdivided. We love acreage. We like the premium product, like Kevin's been selling out in Canungra. I like the fact that we're not selling to the cookie cutter 400 square meter blocks. We can, it's the luxury housing of land, if you like. Yeah. So you'll get that emotional buyer. We've got a nice creek at the back where we'll do the advertising with, you know, the kids swinging into the creek and all that kind of stuff. So we've kind of got a bit of a vision for that one, and we'll probably keep a couple of blocks. And, you know, it's where Shannon grew up, you know, in that Benogan area. So he'll be keen to build his kind of dream home with the crew.
I look at this and this is why I love joint ventures or partnerships with people, obviously, that you trust and can work with. Like you got Shannon frolicking Thailand right now with some family. I think he's there with his uncle and cousins and
Riding
stuff like that.
motorbikes through Asia.
Riding motorbikes through Asia for the next couple of weeks. And here you got Carson getting calls going, yeah, we just got this deal, we just got that deal. Hey, by the way, we just got that deal. All right, no worries. You know, maybe I'll stay an extra week. Maybe I'll stay in that 5-star resort instead of this, you know, shanty that I'm in now or whatever it would be, you know, like, and that is very, very powerful, you know, when you're working with someone that you can trust and you got each other's backs. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's good because, you know, we'll be going over to New Zealand mid-Jan, and he'll hold up the fort. So it's good. Although you won't be back into the $30 hotels because we need all these deposits. So at the moment, so I rang up the brokers. I said, look, I've got 2 good sites, but I've got no money left. Like, what are we going to do? So we're just, you know, we thought we might be able to do some joint ventures, but we've got some equity on sites, even though I didn't even realize we've got a site that we're looking to on sell at the moment. We paid a couple $1 million for it, and hopefully this is one down in Lismore, Canelabar, we've got an offer for 13.5 for the site. And we get to keep a couple of stages as well of seven lots to
Don't suppose you can tell them how much you paid for it, huh?
Hey? Oh, they know. It's it's open knowledge. But it's one of those ones that but it won't be settled for 16 months. So I was like, oh, I have to wait. But the broker's like, oh no, if you've got a put and call contract, they're paying a decent deposit, we can still, the valuer can then value it, even if they don't value it at 13.5, they might value it at 7 or 8. We can still use some of that equity to then go front up these other deals, you know. So I wasn't thinking like
so
that.
basically you've got a site there with obviously a shit ton of equity, just so the listeners can really understand this, right? So I think you mentioned it was a couple $1 million or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Right. And they've owned it for a couple of years, and now they've got an offer of 13 million, right? So they got to wait 16 months to get their 10 to 11 million dollars, but there's soft equity in there that they could use as leverage. So just because you don't have the actual physical cash, right? And even Carson, knowing funding, right? Because this is what you've been doing for quite some time now with these lenders, didn't even think about that. So sometimes it's, again, the creativity. And if you don't think that way, and then all of a sudden you go, hey, Eric, I'd like you to come in on this deal, right? You want a JV? Sure. And it's 50-50, and you go and put in the deposit and then a bit of the incidentals and whatnot. And then all of a sudden you go, holy shit, I just gave away 50% of the profit because I was smart enough in going, I've got $2 million in equity there that I could have just used. And this is crucial because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in this case, millions of dollars. So you have to be very, very cluey when it comes to funding. James and I were talking off camera, and we were saying that we have to start really breaking down funding because, in my opinion, people need to understand funding, because once you understand the fundamentals of the finance and the funding, the creativity is endless. And this was the first question I asked Carson off camera. I'm like, so how you got a lot of stuff happening. I know your personal position because you tell me, right? It's not like you're living off, millions of dollars here. You guys are, basically paying your guys very, very modest wages. I'm like, how are you gonna start? How are you funding all these things? But the other thing is, one, being creative, but two is when you have the right deals and you have the right sites, the money will come. I can guarantee you, right, that you would have called the funders, and even if you didn't have that equity to be put in, they would have still funded you somehow. It would have costed you more, right? But they would have found the money somehow. And you're paying maybe a mezzanine, or a second tier, lender coming in on the front end, and that might have to, give you a bit of that bridging finance in between getting the DA.
But the finance piece is, and I'm still learning so much. Like I spoke to, like Shannon and I probably one thing we're ordinary at is cash flow projections, with what we've been doing. So all of a sudden we've got these projects and we need these deposits. And I'm like, well, we don't have the cash for the deposits. So once again, ring up the Fincio's boys and say, hey, I need like $500,000 in deposits that I don't have. Otherwise I need to go do a joint venture. So what can we do? And those boys that live and breathe it every single day, just said, hey, well, we can give you we'll give you 500, or ask for 550 grand. So I've got to sign it today and the funds will be in my account on Friday. I rang him on Thursday. So in 1 week, they'll give us, so there's no serviceability, there's no statements. It's literally just, okay, there's a bit of equity over there. They can give you up to 70%, of whatever the property is valued of, if it's unencumbered or whatever the equity amount is. And they know what the story is, what we need it for, and they know they're going to get it back. So they're giving us, it's like 18.5%. It's going to be, there's no minimums on it. So we can pay it back like tomorrow if we want to, but it's a bit of a premium. So they normally charge like 1% to organise the typical loan. It's 2.5% for organising the mezz side of things. So
even 18.5% as an example, call it 20% in 500 grand and you need it for a year, it's 100 grand. Yes, it's exorbitant when you look at it on a percentage basis, but when you're buying a block of land that is then going to be worth $2 or $3 million more, the 100 grand is negligible when you look at the big scheme of things.
Well, this project is potentially an 8-figure profit deal, and a week ago I was like, I'm doing it as a joint venture. So just by paying that premium to get the deposit, because I was like, it's too hard, I can't do it in that amount of time. And then like, we can get that to you in a week. It's having those guys in your team. And I've had other brokers where I thought they understand private lending, but they didn't. They didn't live and breathe it. They're like, yeah, we've got a couple of private lenders, and they do your traditional mum dad loans, and they do a little bit on the side. It's completely different than the guys that just live and breathe that world. And so it's been a game changer. And I think that's one of the things we'll do in the new year is unpack that finance piece, because it's always the question, isn't it? How do you find the things, and then how do you finance them? Because like I said, early days, I didn't have a dime, and so it just takes a while to wrap your head around how that world works, because the big end of town, that's how they're doing things. It's just not common knowledge for us plebs out there that are just trying to work this stuff out.
Well, so, I mean, finance, what everyone is used to in finance is, you got your traditional home loans, right? The big four banks, the CBAs, the NABs, the Westpacs that you go to, and ANZ and whatnot. And you go and you drop your pants, and you got to show them everything. You got to show them the credit card statements. You got to show them the Uber Eats, and that's what people think finance is all about. And going, well, I only earn 200 grand a year, and I don't have enough serviceability to buy that, so I can't buy it, and that's about it. Whereas there's a whole other sector of finance now. And most of these guys that run these brokerages, right, that in layman's terms are basically, they represent, right, a lot of family offices, right? They have a lot of these funds, which are basically family offices, and they still broker deals with the Westpacs and the St. George's, and, depending on what their appetites are. But this second tier kind of private lending sector is growing massively. And most of the people that are running these brokerages are ex-bankers. They're ex-ANZ development bankers, Westpac, NAB. And then they go, you know what? We're trying to get this money out the door, and they're making it too difficult. And I'm not making enough money because not enough deals are going through, right? So what I'm going to do is go and set up my own brokerage. And then 2 or 3 of them get together, they set up their own brokerage, and they already have contacts from being in the industry. Now you're paying a few points more, but they look at it from a project to project basis. They're not looking at it from a serviceability perspective, from your taxes, from your personal expenditure, from your you're not cross collateralizing, properties, right? Like we call these SPVs, right? Special purpose vehicles that get set up, right? Which are companies. And then they look at that project on its own merit from a profitability perspective, but as well as who are the people? And they're going to ask the questions, right? What projects have you done? Right? So, can I have a chat with your, with a previous lender, or, your business partner or your consultants, just to make sure that whoever is looking at these projects has the experience to get it done. Because you could have a very profitable project, but if you don't know what the hell you're doing, it's not going to give the funder the confidence.
Yeah. And the key is, like you said, those margins. If you've got enough margin, if you're doing a deal at 30% and you get it approved, then all of a sudden the bank will lend it back at 20. That's the soft equity. But if your FISO says 20% from day one, you're relying on the market going up to try and get any uplift there, which is it's just, and look, to be honest, that's where 80-90% of developers play, like, because it's just so hard to make things stack up now, especially built form. And that's why most of our offers never get accepted. That's why I've got to make a lot more offers probably than the average punter. But like I say to our guys, it's like, if you want a KPI, try and get 1 to 3 offers out the door every week. That's kind of what I'm doing. And a lot of them are just throwaway offers where 99% of the time it's not going to work, but every now and again one of those ones come back. So it's just, once again, it's just a numbers game.
Yeah. Let's change gears a little bit. I see Kevin sweating here. He's dying to get in on these conversations.
No. just going to close the loop on a few things you've said, though.
There's been a lot of changes in the rooming housing legislation as of late, and we talked about it a little bit on the last podcast that we released with you. But I think it was,
didn't that go?
Yeah.
Just because I said Queensland is making it illegal to solve affordable housing, I made that comment before they made the changes.
Yeah.
And right on cue, they made it illegal to solve affordable housing.
Yeah, because that was only like a week prior to the release of the podcast, to them sitting down. So tell us a little bit about, obviously you're the rooming house expert, and really affordable housing, right? That is your main goal, right? To create affordable housing for Australia. And for those people that don't know, what rulings, what actually happened, who met, what was the legislation, what are they talking about?
So I'll close the loop on, if I may, some of the comments you made. You mentioned earlier that you've been in tiling. That means you're used to sweaty boobs anyway, because that's part of the career path of that choice.
100%.
Yep. You mentioned herding cats. For the audience out there, there's a great video on YouTube, Herding Cats. You'll love it. Highly recommend you see that. To your comments earlier, our selective clearing policies up until the year 2000, the Courier Mail called me out on a site where we were doing in Stretton of about 1,000 blocks, and we cleared it. And they asked me what the selective clearing policy was, and I said, we select the block and clear it. That
went down well. Yeah.
Didn't go down well. But the big one was, I did a job with the UDIA back in the year 2000, and I called it the Irish Developer, because I'd done a study of all the estates that we'd done. And so the headline was the Irish Developer. And they said, so the presentation was based on that. So when I started, I said, the reason I'm calling it the Irish Developer is it's all about a turd. You'd pay a turd to buy it, a turd to develop it, a turd at profit. And even today, that hasn't changed, but it might be you pay more than a third to buy something, less than a third to develop it, but you still have to make that turd at the end. And that 33% gross is pretty well hasn't changed since the beginning of time.
Hmm.
So we used to do FISOs on the back of a bus ticket to make sure they worked. And we could pretty well do that in our head, because after 20,000 deals, you kind of know where you're not, and kind of know where you are. And when you've got that third gross, you know there's wiggle room. You can get out of trouble, in trouble. And keep in mind, we were selling a block in Callumvale at that stage for $45,000 a block. So we're paying 10 grand raw, 10 grand to develop, and roughly 15 grand left for commissions and charges and other things. That same block is now $1 million. So the problem is they're just not leaving enough in for the next guy at the moment. The vendors have got this issue of what it's worth, and they're getting it because we've got less now than 10 weeks supply in the whole of the nation. So Stockland, Land Lease, and all those guys are selling out by 9 months waiting for title.
What did it used to be? You used to say 10 weeks. What's a healthy or standard market in your time of
I don't
supply?
understand the question.
You're saying there's only 10 weeks left of supply? Is that what you're saying?
Nationally, in
Yeah.
titled land, yes.
What's it been traditionally? Like 20 weeks or
Years.
Yeah, right.
Because you see, you used to be able to, in up until the year roughly 1995, you could either breed a kid or do a subdivision in the same time, roughly 9 months. Now it takes 15 years. So your kid's in high school by the time you get your final title on a master planned estate. So it's a much longer program. And so now the real money, as far as developers are concerned in Australia, is land banking. So he who can buy the biggest number before it's painted a certain color of crayon, which is pink. Pink determines that it's then residential. And that residential zoning is now dependent on utility providers who are at cracking point, being able to supply utilities such as water.
And what Kevin's talking about here is the zoning, right? The mapping of a specific area. And you can what I'd recommend everybody doing is go to their local council zone mapping. So you go to the Gold Coast Interactive zone mapping as an example, and have a play with it, because it'll tell you exactly what's residential, what's low density, what's medium density, what's high density, what's rural, what's wetlands, all these different types of things. So you can start seeing right where the pink is and where the infill stuff is.
Yeah.
And when councils are getting together and they're looking at the new city plans and what with infill development and what they're doing, all this is public information. And then you can start making your own hypothesis in regards to, from a land bank perspective, like you start looking at Sydney as an example, where they built that second airport. At some point, that second airport, right, was in discussions, right? And then it got more serious, then it got more serious, then it got more serious. Now, anyone that has bought any land around that area in the last 10 years are going to do very, very, very well.
Yeah, they are.
Right. And look at stuff like where Bunnings, Woolies, Coles, Macca's, any of these large corporate clients, right? They got a big market research. They got a big due diligence team that's all they do. And if it's good enough for them, it should be good enough for you as well. If you're looking around the area, give or take, you know what I mean, right?
It's actually,
they leave clues.
the simplest clue is this: one job equals one house. So, you might get a few marketers who say the place to go to, call it 15 years ago, was Moranbah, a mining town. You couldn't help but make money, and it went from $60,000 to $1.2 million.
Yeah.
But what they forgot was one job equals one house, and every job was mining. So
One
when the
industry
mining
is a
shuts
problem.
down, you're dead. So, and what people forget is, especially Queenslanders, is they see Queensland as this opportunity. They might go to, say, Airlie Beach and say, wow, there's an opportunity here. But if you drew a line across from Rockhampton, across the whole of Australia, there's less than 1 million people living above that line. So again, you've got to have humans to create an outcome. And when you've got less than 1 million people living from Rocky North to the whole of Australia, that's not a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you see opportunities in Townsville or Cairns or Serena or Whitsundays. The amount of developers I've had to bail out through their banks because they went north of that line is frightening over the decades. And they forget. And now people are saying, this mining town, there's coppers coming in, let's do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
One job equals one house.
Yeah.
So study your jobs. So, for instance, we've been studying as a task force for 2 years now, 2 towns, Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour. As of January next year, we're moving into Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour because the maturity of those places.
It makes sense though, right?
Yeah,
Like when you look at where they are in proximity to,
the city.
Sydney, to Sydney.
Sydney, 3.5 hours from Port Macquarie.
Yeah, and you look at where it is. It's quite a nice place. People would live there.
Yeah, for a matter of fact, they do.
Yeah,
47,500.
yeah. There you go. Right.
And Coffs Harbour, 75,000.
Yeah,
Living there.
but it would be an easy place to go to, right? Like especially if you're in Sydney, you're getting bought out of the market, and you go, holy shit, I can work from home now, or I'm doing remote sales or whatever it is. You can actually go there, and it's a lot more affordable.
We used to have a joke about Sydney people. We used to say you can tell a man from Sydney, you just can't tell him much. And the reason we used to say that was because they're just fundamentally brighter. The city of Sydney is like New York,
Yes.
and they're just fast and they're pretty furious and they know their stuff. But the one thing they won't do is move to Queensland because it's just this
Slow country town.
Yeah, and they're faithful to their teams, their blues and
Yes.
things of that nature. So for them to move from, say, Sydney to Brisbane, unheard of. But they will go to Coffs, they will go to Port, they will go to Byron, they will go to those towns. And there's a bigger population in New South Wales, and it's a smaller place. So expect to see a lot of growth in terms of subdivisions, in my opinion, as we search now, realizing that the retail value of a block of land in Coffs versus Port Macquarie, a lot of maturity. So you'll hear me talk next year about joint ventures, acquisitions, new building teams, new products in those areas because they're hitting a certain sense of maturity.
Now, tell me, I really, really want to know what's happening in this rooming housing legislation. Like what changes were made? Because obviously you're going to these areas for a reason, and you've named some of those reasons. But tell me about the legislation that's just changed in the audience in Queensland, because we didn't talk too much about this off camera, and they had a meeting, and since that, things have changed.
Yeah, may I go backwards to go forward?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's not about the money; it's about the money. And so when we released the first rooming house in Brisbane, we argued that what we were building was a good Catholic home, a 5-bedroom home. The fact that the way we built that 5-bedroom home with its own lounge, dining, kitchen, and bathroom created an argument with the Brisbane City Council where they said, well, that really is 5 units of accommodation. Therefore, we believe that we're entitled to $21,000 per room. My argument was if mum and dad had 3 children, like a good Catholic family, there's no infrastructure charges other than one.
What's an infrastructure charge for the listeners that don't know what that is?
Okay, so when a developer develops a block of land, such as Carson does, the government will charge him roughly $28,000 per block as an infrastructure charge per dwelling house, of which the developer will pay.
That's like a tax, I guess?
For want of a better word, yeah.
And where does that money go? They spend it on roads and parks and these types of things?
Christmas party.
Yeah, in the good old days, council's responsibility was roads, rates, and rubbish. Then they outsourced things like water. Then they outsourced power to various utility providers like QUU or others. Those guys are then responsible for creating your water supply or your sewage systems, and the council pulled away from those duties. That meant that then someone said, well, we need to make money out of that. So every time a block is developed, Carson is paying money to the utility provider for water, the sewage providers for various services that are required. Supposedly, that money needs to go to parks or upgrades or road maintenance and other things.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, it doesn't, but who am I to argue with the accountants?
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is Brisbane City Council is the largest local authority in the Southern Hemisphere. It's a big council. Biggest in the southern world. So they took us to court 6 times. They said you can't have a kitchen. So we moved the bathroom sink to the kitchen and put it there. And that really upset them. But there's nothing they can do about that. Then they said you can only have a bar fridge. So we put in a larger fridge. Why do we do that? Because a bar fridge has a name, bar fridge, that's for booze. You can't put food in a bar fridge because it doesn't have enough airflow. It just doesn't work. So that's why we do that, not because we like to win, but because it works. So we develop what we call a sacred space, 30 square meters with your own lounge, dining, kitchen, bathroom, and they don't get any infrastructure charge. So every time we built 10, they missed out on $100,000 times 10 is $100,000. Every time we do 100, that's $1 million. Every time we do a few hundred, it's 30 million bucks that they don't get in general revenue. So when I say the move they're making, it's not about the money, it's about the money. They haven't said that. But what councils do is they make it impossible to build them. And so here's what they're proposing. Where we now have a kitchen that's 1,800 long, 1.8 meters, with a beautiful 4 cupboards on top and lovely stone top benches, and we've got sandwich makers and kettles and all those things that make it home. And then we've got the lounge, their own deck. What they're now saying is that the common area is the only place that the 5 people can cook. So now they have to share this common area. So what literally they're saying is that they want me to be a slum landlord. And I can't say that. Well, I just did. But I mean, I can't say it to them, and I can't say it out there because it sounds wrong that a government's...
So they're not allowing you to have their own small kitchenette in their own room.
No more sacred spaces. You can only have a 600 wide, which is about the width of a microwave. And then you can have a beer fridge and just a little stand.
What they expect you to have just one shared fridge with everyone writing their names on their food, not like a hostel.
Yeah, it goes back in time. A guy called Birmingham wrote a book called He Died with a Falafel in His Hand, which was all about share housing, which was an absolute disaster because people just don't get on with people.
I remember, honestly, 17, 18 years ago when we arrived, we went to Melbourne with my wife and her parents, and we stayed in a hostel, right? We weren't sure. We didn't know, but we booked it and we stayed in a hostel. And Jen's dad's a bit old school Portuguese, like he just, no filter, he just does what he wants. And he goes to the fridge and opens the fridge, the communal fridge, and there's food everywhere. And he literally just grabbed, I forget what it was, but he grabbed it and he ate it. And we're like, Joe, you can't do that, man. That's someone's food. It's okay. Don't worry about it. But these are the problems.
Yeah.
Right? That with the wrong person is a fight.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And then that's where the slum landlord things come in. And then you get the phone call going, I want, and this is, but why?
We're literally,
I know why.
Well, we know why. Because we're moving from sacred spaces now to this common co-living thing where somebody who obviously went to school and got a different opinion of how things should be is that we have this gigantic kitchen where people can walk around each other and cook together and do kumbaya and maybe play a guitar. I don't know. 15% of the site now has to be heavily landscaped. The cars have to be behind the landscaping area, which means we cannot really build a low set anymore. It has to be a 2-story.
Which makes it unfeasible.
Yeah, but they did exactly the same thing on townhouses to the day 6 years earlier. Deep planting, landscaping, same thing. They banned duplexes. So in Brisbane, the largest local authority in the Southern Hemisphere, they've come out with this incredible plan only last week, which is more homes sooner. And their version of a home is up, not out. But most governments believe it should be up, not out, with no respect to the building costs. I mean, you mentioned earlier you're building a single dwelling to which you and your wife are moving into, but when you're building tenant on tenant, the cost of that is so much higher.
100%.
Because you're dealing with some real problems.
Well, we own a site in Palm Beach as an example, and we can get code accessible 9 levels. Impact we could get 13, and we've been working on FISOs. We've owned the land for 3.5 years maybe, and it's a land bank because it doesn't work when you buy it because you're building vertically, and there's challenge, like you said, there's basements equals problems. Basements equals a lot of money, and then you want to try and push podiums, but they don't want podiums because podiums don't look as nice, and it becomes difficult, right? And then by the time you build it, they now not need 100,000 homes, they need 150,000 homes as an example. Meanwhile, what they can do is try and make it a little bit easier to build that there and then.
Well, we're actually building a box per box. Like each box is 30 square meters, which costs us roughly 120K. 5 of those is roughly 5 times that, just under 600K to build a low set 5 separate micro apartments. When you start building level on level, would be 2 levels or 3, it jumps to 12,500 a meter for house and land in those suburban environments, which means 100 square meters is 1.2 million.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And they want more homes sooner. It's just not going to happen.
So this came out, you've been doing it here. You're now going, all right, that's fine. Let me find where I'm going to go to next. And is this where the whole COFs and Port Macquarie and different councils, different
Well,
regulations, and going, okay, who's there that wants to work with us?
yes and no. I mean, we've been studying COFs and Port Macquarie now for 2.5 years, and we had to wait. And what is that thing we have to wait for is what can a block finally sell for,
Yeah.
where it actually works. Whereas, that's one. Secondly, what are the jobs? Are they permanent? What is the movement of that tribe? For instance, in Melbourne and Sydney, 440 humans live in every square kilometre, but in Brisbane, only 165 per square kilometre, which means that
Not enough infill.
well, they're not addressing their missing middle. Mentally, they believe they can do it with high rise or some form of unit on unit, but the average number of people that live in Brisbane is probably about 2 in each house in an 809 square metre block or a 404 square metre block, and that's not going to change long term. They're not going anywhere. They like living where they live in Alderley and all those areas. So basically, the rooming house was at least putting 5 people, and 21% of Australians are now single, and in America it's heading to 40%. So it's a big number.
Do you think they're scared? Like,
No, it's about the money. It's about the money.
it's just money?
Yeah.
You don't think they're scared going, oh, we're going to be promoting this kind of, even promoting this single kind of living even more?
No, I'm going to bet parts of my body, which I can't mention at this point, but I'll bet my left one that in less than a year, there will be an infrastructure charge of $21,000 per room.
Well, it's a good thing you got 2 ears, eh?
Yeah, I know. I can't want to bet those. So basically what I'm saying is that my play is that this time next year, there'll be a thing where Brisbane City Council will be able to charge $21,000 and will then allow micro apartments within that structure, because it's not about the money. It's about the money. That's my belief on that.
Yeah, it's funny what you're saying about that construction cost before. I heard a stat the other day, I think for the high rise, I think it was 30 or 35% of DAs that are getting lodged are actually getting built. But for detached housing, it was like 95% of developer approvals
Every time.
we're getting built.
Every time.
And that's why a lot of the government bodies now, they were at a UDI meeting the other day, and they were saying, oh, we've just added a new component where feasibilities to their overall planning, because they were patting each other on the back saying, look, we've allowed all this, high rise to meet all our targets. Problem is nobody's building it unless it's sitting on the water, because it doesn't stack up, like you say. So they're adding that in, but it's just, it's one of those things that
I think, and to answer your earlier comment about Port Macquarie as an example, 2.5 years ago, maybe 5 people a week, maybe 10 people a week were moving to Coffs Harbour. Now it's 66 people per week. So what we look for is that sudden bison movement, where the herd starts to move.
And what's bringing them there? Is it obviously affordability is one thing? Is that the main thing, or is it jobs? Or is it?
No, lifestyle. When you look at Port Macquarie, it used to be probably 5 hours from Sydney because of the road systems.
Yes.
Now it's at that magical 3.5.
With that new highway that they built through there.
So what happens with people is you can drive from Brisbane to, say, Hervey Bay, and at that point you're done.
Yeah.
Whereas if I asked you to drive from Brisbane as a family to, say, Rockhampton, that's 6 hours, whereas Harvey's 3.5.
Yeah.
So we're pretty comfortable commuting from a city to a location for a weekend for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
But we're not comfortable going to, say, Coffs,
Yeah.
which is too far from Sydney for that commute
Yeah.
or lifestyle change. So for someone in Sydney who's had a life of living in Sydney, their grandchildren are there, the parents can either move to Coffs Harbour, or the kids could, and still be within range of the thing. So it's no different to Shannon saying he wants to build his principal home in a place he grew up.
Yeah.
People are no different to that. The acorn doesn't fall. Yeah, the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
In that sense, we think local in how we do.
Do you think? Do you think you can do the one where you had the living quarters upstairs and the rooming set up downstairs? Do you think you can do a similar version to that in New South Wales, but with potentially a couple extra rooms, given that you can do some more in New South Wales? Or what's the brainchild you're conjuring up for over the border?
Yeah. Shucks.
For those of you guys that aren't watching, like Kevin just had the sneakiest smile that you'd ever see. Actually, kind of scared me a little bit.
So I think the answer is you're allowed to build up to 300 square meters in a rooming house anywhere in Australia because that's the code. National Building Code is 300 square meters. The zoning is Class 1B construction. So in New South Wales, you can have 12 occupants. In Brisbane, 5. In New South Wales, you could have 8 bedrooms because of that. And in those 8 bedrooms, 5 of them could be couples. So in Queensland, it's single dwelling, 5 unrelated parties. That's it. But New South Wales, 12 occupants. And so therefore, it means that I'd probably go in with 2 models to answer your question. One is the 5-bedroom model. You can have that. Or as an investor, if you want the 8-bedroom model, you can have that. That'll cost this, that'll cost that. The returns will be higher in New South Wales because there's more people. The cost to build is higher in New South Wales, and the time it takes to get an approval in New South Wales is longer. But the hard part was finding the best builders and everything else. So our proposal is really, our approach is Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour is all about subdivisions. The product we then create at the end is just what the market needs, but the real money is in subdivisions in Port Macquarie. So if I was taking you for a drive, and you and I went to Port or to Coffs, I'd show you the numbers and you'd go, I like this spot because it fits the Irish developer, a turd. There's that 33% in it.
Yeah, and places like the Gold Coast as an example, I mean, it's in Brisbane, Southeast Queensland, there's so much demand here, but it's hard to make things stack up, right? Like there's, like you said, the third. There's not many people sitting there on a visibility making 33%.
No, because they're literally, because there's no deals out there, they're paying too much to buy the land.
It's the land. That's what you said. The vendor sitting there going, well, that one just sold for 25 million, so mine's worth 28 million because mine's north facing and that one was south facing, as an example. You know, like, and it's the vendors. And I'm a vendor, as an example. I'm not selling anything at the moment, but you know, Carson's a vendor, and he'll be doing the same thing. Like, oh, if that one just sold in Guanella for that amount, well, that means mine's worth this, right? And that's what sets markets, right? What is something worth? What someone in the market is willing to pay for it, whether it's overs or not, but that sets the new benchmark. We're doing it with Burley right now, right? I'm scouring for every single sale in the area to go, shit, that one sold for 8 million. That one sold for 4.3. That one's only 250 square meters. Ours are 350 square meters. So not as good of a view, but all right, if you take that, that means mine should be worth X, right? And that's what's driving and pushing prices higher and higher and higher. Like, I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, luxury real estate agent. And this is what people need to understand in regards to demographics, population, jobs, gentrification, these types of things.
Someone like Mick you're talking about here?
No, not Mick. No, someone else, right? So he sells luxury real estate. And I'm like, how's it going? He goes, Eric, honestly, the money now coming to the Gold Coast, I've never seen it before.
Oh, it's massive.
I go, okay, give me an example. He goes, I was talking to a client, you know, and he's from interstate, looking to change lifestyle and come move to the Gold Coast. He sold a property, and it was like, you know, interstate. Started digging a little bit. He's like, okay, yeah. So what are you looking for? Not exactly sure, but I recently sold one of my homes, a residence, for 65 million, and now I want to move to the Gold Coast. And I was just like, what? Like, number one, there's nothing for 65 million that you can buy on the Gold Coast. I mean, you can maybe buy Pacific Fair if you want, but I'm joking, but you know what I mean? Like, this is the level of funds that are coming here now, right? So when people are going, man, who's buying that $15 million house on the canal? Who's buying that block of land on Monaco Street for $6 million and then having to spend $10 million on a build and building this man? Like, there's people out there that want these types of things. It might not be the people that we walk around in our circles, as an example, but there's a lot of different money coming into Southeast Queensland that we haven't seen before.
Well, Turac's nice, but the Gold Coast on the beach is
like
better.
All these areas, right? So, so I think what Kevin is saying, I've known Kevin now probably a little over a year, and a couple of the events that he's been speaking at that we've done recently, I remember him, right, spitting off these stats around Coffs Harbor and Port Macquarie. Now he hasn't built anything there yet, but he's going to, right? So this isn't just an overnight thing. He's looking at data. I know you're data driven, right? You're a lot more data driven than I am, and Carson is, right? Carson's not sitting there looking at stats and going, oh, how many people in Mudrub are working over here at the pub? Who's this one? And he's going, I know this is what this can sell for, and bang, right?
Yep.
Whereas you're taking it to that next level because there's a certain demographic that you are targeting, and you need to make sure, right? Like when I mentioned earlier, herding the cats, right? That's what you're doing. You're seeing where the cats are going, right? Like your cats as an example, right?
165 per square kilometre in Brisbane, 440 in Melbourne and Sydney.
Where are they going? So I think that's very, very important. So what would you recommend? Because I want to finish this pod up, but I want to give some education around what can people listening to this, right? Like the people that are listening to these pods are the ones that are very interested in property. This is very targeted. It is very niche, right? We're never going to get the views like the politic ones where everyone goes crazy. These are people that want to change their lives. They want to understand property. They want to understand land development. They want to understand small scale development. What should some of these people be looking for? Because a lot of people just go on realestate.com, recently sold, blocks, they'll go on Stash, put a few inquiries. From a demographics perspective, what are some of the things that the data, the numbers you are specifically looking for that someone else can, if they wanted to do some digging, what are some top level numbers, like people per square kilometer as an example? Like I've never looked up that data before, but it makes a lot of sense.
Feel free to fact check what we're talking.
No, but it makes a lot of sense for me, right? Yeah. Because I'm going like 400 and something to 100 and something. All that tells me
440 in Melbourne,
right? 440 in Melbourne to
Sydney,
right? And 100 and something in
165,
right? In
Brisbane.
All that tells me, right, is there's not enough dense infill development in Brisbane, as an example, versus
a bunch of slack asses that want to maintain a country town.
Yeah, versus Sydney, right? Yeah. So what are some other, I guess, data markers that people should be looking at that aren't maybe as in your face?
Okay, so for instance, back in the days when I was in the Gold Coast back in the 80s, we would call the Gold Coast God's waiting room. It's where you come to die or retire, for want of a better word. Going back even further, a guy called Joe Bjelke-Petersen, he killed death duty in Queensland. So overnight, there was this exodus of money from New South Wales and Victoria to Queensland to buy something here because you could die here and not pay death duties, things of that nature. So certain triggers can change things. It's all about what creates the bisons move, what makes them migrate, what makes them do what they do. Why do the pelicans go all the way to Lake Eyre to do what they do once a year and have fun, breed, and generally do what they do? What is it? What are the triggers? So what I look at is human movement. That's all there is, because all motion has an E in front of it. All motion is emotion. You can't even lift your finger without an emotion. So I look at the emotion of what is causing that. The Gold Coast is now matured. It's not where you go to die. It's where you come to enjoy. It's where you live. It's where you work from home. It's a central point. Brisbane, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast will become Bris Vegas as one. It'll be the best city in the southern world when you look at that. Nothing is going to stop Brisbane. Not even Brisbane City Council could do that, although they're working hard at it. So basically, we are an Olympic city. Historically, that's another marker. When you've got an Olympic city, it means that when you look at Melbourne 1956, the day they did that, it boomed. It caught up to Sydney.
2000.
Sydney 2000, bang, it boomed. Brisbane, bang, it won't boom because we've already boomed, but it will maintain. It means we will have a soft landing over the next few years.
Rather than the peaks and troughs.
You got it. So we'll have a soft landing. So for those waiting for the price to fall, good luck with that. So you've got like 800 people every week coming to Brisbane, southeast Queensland. But in a place like Coffs Harbour with, say, 74 million, you start to notice more than X number coming per week. That's a big herd coming at you based on the number.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
You take 66 divided by the 74 versus the.
Well, you take, Port Macquarie as an example, it's say 47,500, and you add 66 people per week to that. That's percentage-wise, that's 66 people looking for a job, or they have a job, or, what are they doing? Are they coming there to retire? Are they going to spend money?
And what are some of the websites or areas that people could find some of this information?
Oh, there's so many ways you can cheat, but ABS is God.
ABS. And what is ABS for the people that don't know?
The Australian Bureau of Census and Statistics. And I mean, each time they ask us to tell us what we're eating and where we're sleeping and how we're doing it. It's the only solid data we have is ABS. I mean, I love it. But a mate of mine, Michael Matuzik, Matuzik Missives, they're free. Crazy guy that he is. He interprets it very well. Another mate of mine, Ross Elliott, writes a thing called a site of his called The Pulse. These are good reads. They're all free. Get onto those. They're smart people. You guys got a lot of
Yeah. Super. That's why we do this, right?
We're doing a show, I think, in March, aren't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is massive.
It's going to be a good one. We'll be
that's 12 weeks from now.
Yeah. Talking about that very shortly. But again, this is why we do this podcast, guys, right? Like this podcast isn't an interview style podcast. Obviously, it's just a few boys here having a chat about what they're doing and the experiences that they have and any little snippets that you guys can take, right? Like anyone that's listening to this that haven't been on the ABS website, you go there now and you start marking, right? You start opening up a spreadsheet.
What are the jobs?
And start tallying it, right? Whether it's monthly, whether it's yearly, and start tallying so you can start seeing the data and it'll start giving you information. Then you can, again, come up with your own hypothesis of going, you know what, there's a lot of people moving in this area and I want to know why. Oh, actually, it's because they just opened up a new coal mine. Well, that's probably not the area that you're going to want to go. Because at some point, you're going to be sitting there with something in your hand going, oh, shit, I probably shouldn't have done this. Right? I did a similar thing. I had a property in Roma, never seen it. Rode the gas boom. Then it was the Roma floods. Then JJ Richards is renting the property for, 150% more than what it should be. And then all of a sudden that dies down and I seen the writing on the wall. Got out. But if I was still there, forget about it. So got to be very, very careful in those areas. But again, it's all boils back down to like what you're doing.
Disclaimer, if I may, though, please don't suddenly run off and buy Port Macquarie or Coffs Harbour. Not because you're going to concern me at all, but because there's homework I've done that they haven't done.
Of course.
So please reach out and ask questions.
Correct.
They would.
Correct.
My agency team in Port Macquarie, I've known them for 25 years. And I'm dealing with them on a monthly basis. The agency teams in Coffs Harbour, I've known them for 15 years. These are people I trust.
But you're putting in the work, right? Listening is one thing, guys, but actually executing is the other. Rather than turning on Netflix and watching the latest episodes of, Sons of Anarchy and all these shows that everyone watches, and I love them as well, start doing a bit of work. That the work is where it's at. Like I'm getting messages from Carson, in the chat at 4 a.m. and I know exactly what he's doing. He's not scrolling Instagram, right? He's scrolling through Stash. He's scrolling through Domain. He's scrolling through REA. He's probably the best thing, right? For those of you guys that don't know what it is, and I use this almost every day. For those I'm going to leave the podcast with this. For those of you guys that work early and, it's 4 a.m, it's 5 a.m, and you're seeing things and you want to text people or you want to text agents, use send later. Do you know what send later is?
All the time.
On your Apple? So send later is, go to your right? Go to your text message, right? And you go to send an email and there's a little plus button here, right? And then if it's iPhone to iPhone, there's a thing called send later, right? And you can set the timer. So you can send the text at 4 a.m, and you can go, you know what? I know this guy. I don't want to interrupt him. I want to message him at 9:01. You time it at 9:01. You send a message. It's out of your head. You put it as a follow-up task. But that send later, majority of people, it's the amount of people that I know that didn't know it. And I'm kind of thinking like, shit, I didn't even know it. And I'm like, am I the stupid one that doesn't know this?
Emails do.
And you look at someone like Carson going, he's contacting people every day and doesn't know it. Just that one thing. Australian Bureau of Census or Statistics, is it? Yeah. ABS. And send later. Those two things.
Well, I'll give you a third. A mentor of mine once said, turn your car into your university. And so as the carpet cleaner driving around wanting to do property development instead of putting on, you know, the local radio station or iTunes. You got the same amount of time. And yes, I still listen to it every now and again, but like 89%, I just shifted that one thing. I'm still doing the same job.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, just picking up a little nugget every single week, every single day. And it's just by listening to podcasts or getting some education from someone else and just consuming as much as you can. Like these days, there's so much free information out there. You can just...
Success leaves clues, and these are small little clues.
Big one. One big one. Ramming speed. People don't know.
I'm good at that.
Okay, ramming. Oh dear, there's so many ways I could have gone there. Oh, I love the filter in my brain.
Actually, you know what? I think I'm good at that.
And it always ends up there at something. Ramming speed was based on the Romans. They would get a guy on a drum to beat it. And the only reason the Romans always won in naval battle was they could get to ramming speed faster and harder. They could sink a ship with the hit that they had. But in today's society, it takes 15 minutes to get to ramming speed. And if your phone goes off, or there's a distraction, it takes you another 15 minutes to get to ramming speed. So developers today, the young guns, they never get to ramming speed. Like for me, there's no distractions in here. I don't watch television. There's no radio. There's no newspapers. I got nothing.
Yeah.
But every day I wake up, I go, I'm at ramming speed.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do.
And try and carve out some time, right? Like throughout the day.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of things, right? So there's a lot of that ramming speed that gets taken up. But if you need to wake up that hour earlier, like no one's ringing you at 5 a.m. No one, no one's sending later and going, I'm going to send this message at 5:30 in the morning, right, to wake this guy up. And that's not happening. So, carve out some of that time. No one's going to be ringing you after a certain amount of a certain time in the evening. And that's the difference in regards to sometimes being successful or not. I listened to a podcast with Elon Musk earlier this morning. We talked about on the Friday pod, and he's like, people that start startups that have time constraints, it's not going to work. You need to put in the hours. This is no different. Think of this as a startup. It is no different. Put in the time, put in the effort. Success leaves clues. That's why this guy, Carson beside me, is literally sitting here going, I bought a site for $2 million a couple years ago, selling it for $13 million, and he's doing 5 other ones. This guy was earning $1,000 a week 4 to 5 years ago, cleaning carpets. I need everyone to kind of understand that, right? It is because he is putting in the work. Everything he does revolves around land subdivision.
Yeah,
he eats it. He's sleeping about it.
Yeah.
He's eating it. He's thinking about it. That's all he's doing. And it's life-changing money to someone. It is life-changing money. So for those of you guys that are enjoying this, let us know in the comments. Let us know other things that you want us to talk about. Please like, share, subscribe. We will continue to do these. We'll do them more regularly coming into the new year. But we just want to make sure that we're hitting the mark. And if we're not hitting the mark, let us know, and let us know how we can improve and other topics that you want to talk about. Kevin, Carson.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
As usual, always love the banter.
Merry Christmas to you guys.
Yes. And we'll see you guys next year. This is going to be the last one for this year. So for those of you guys that are listening to this prior to Christmas, as Kevin just said, Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2026.
Indeed.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Hey there. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.